Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is DB333 and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, the New Order. Last days of Europe as the Greater German Reich. Now, in last video, well, a lot of things happened in the actual last time I recorded, but unfortunately, various things happened that makes it so that you won't be able to, listen to that. Mainly, let me explain real quick. I tried recording this part and the part after this 2 times now already, and unfortunately both times I did it. The audio did not pick up for some weird issue, because of some weird issue with OBS. I don't know what exactly. Not OBS, Shadowplay. And so, yeah, for whatever fucking reason, the audio did not save. And now I have to re-record fucking again. But you know what? That's not the worst thing. I think the last thing we did since we sat down and started the last part, I should say. I think we finished up a lot of our army tree, and we started really working on sort of our science tree. Yeah. In fact, we're going to be done with this whole side of a tree soon enough. And we are also getting very, very close to abolishing slavery all across the Reich. Which, I don't know if I need to remind you guys, but that is pretty fucking based. And so, what we're going to do, we're going to just keep a general eye on this, so we can get rid of it as soon as possible. My hope is, by the end of this video, 1, the audio will still be good so I can use this. But 2, we'll get rid of slavery. Because that's what happened the first time I recorded the first part. The second part I had to cut the video shorter because I had to go to work very shortly soon, so I had to cut the videos shorter. And of course we already know how that all worked out. So we gotta wait a little bit for this to unlock. It's only like a few days, so it's not that big a deal. I'm finally doing it. I remember a few people were asking, "Hey, can you bring Nezram online?" And I told them, like, listen, I pre-record a lot of it, so there's only so much I can do. But now I can actually do it, and that's pretty neat. And I'm happy about that, because it is a pretty fun little tidbit. Let's go ahead and go down the land of a rising sun. Though we've accepted Schmidt's plan of mainly favoring relations with the U.S., we can manage to charm the Japanese into lowering hostilities with us. It's possible another avenue of profit that could be funneled into the Reich, and may help them too, but what's a world without a dose of realpolitik? We will have some minor concerns to deal with about what the U.S. feels on us attempting to spark diplomacy with the U.S., meaning we cannot go all out on our efforts, but we can still make significant efforts. There are 2 main things to deal with: removing trade barriers and negotiating the reduction of sanctions. Let's get down to business to defeat the Hun. Wait, we are the Hun, never mind. Well, I'll keep an eye on Preußen. Same with our command power. Because we're getting it at a pretty solid rate at this point, so... Well, the thing is, we gotta worry about the Middle Eastern conflicts, which... Well, those are going pretty well in our favor, at least the ones that we can worry about. Egypt kind of crapped out on us for whatever, randomly. But other than that, let me see. Middle East in flames. Close that. Oman is still ongoing. Yemen, that's still ongoing too, I guess. Oman's actually picking up a little bit, which is nice. They weren't doing too hot, but something's working out there. I don't know. After witnessing Schmidt's arduous work of restoring relations to trade with U.S., Earhart was rather surprised to see the memo he received from Speer. All it said was, report on the economic benefits of detente with Japan. Despite the huge effort that had gone in defending the U.S. at expense of relations with Japan, Earhart had to admit that, for once, Speer was onto something. What do the Japanese have to offer? I don't know. Let's check out on Japan right now and see what they have to offer. Slave labor. Not just slave labor, but Japanese slave labor. Slave labor of Japanese people. I mean, Japan already had some sort of slave labor going on in Manchukuo, but now it's just dead-ass fucking slave labor. The National Protecting Army is still hanging in there, interestingly enough. Let's assess their worth. The Japanese economy is truly massive, wielding almost the entirety of East Asia under their grasp. The potential for growth seems almost unlimited. First, however, we must cover a couple bases. The Reich will begin organizing diplomats to Tokyo. And we will see if the Japanese government is at interest in reciprocating any deals that we might make with them. Not only that, we must make sure that there is something that they can give in exchange for what Japan can give to us. No deal between superpowers is completely one-sided after all, even if we wish it were. I don't think that music is that big a deal. I think I'll be fine. Well, we no longer have that going for us, so we can get working back on the science path shortly. Come on, Erhard, called Speer. I don't have time to read through your report right now, but would you be able to briefly sum it up for me? A scowl quickly formed in Erhard's face. Why bother with the damn report if it's not even going to be read? Allowing Japanese goods and investments into our economy would be greatly beneficial to Germany if we all sign a trade deal with Japan. Overall, I'd say trade with Japan would be a prudent move. Excellent. I suppose we'll get Schmidt to engage with the Japanese to begin negotiations for a limited deal. Thank you for the report. Do what you like. Schmidt! I have another mission for you! No? I got another mission for the middle class. Treat yourself. Next we'll go with, right, it's right here. The Deutsch that. You can say many things about us Germans, but not that we are impractical. As our research deepens and ARC achieves more and more breakthroughs, the most recent discoveries in the field of electronics and wireless communications are suited for a subtle approach to the matter of public security. Agents from the R&D have made contact with the RFM, asking to be given the prototype of these new technologies so that they may begin to implement them in their secret operations. Being able to spy without being seen or without being in the same building, sometimes even in the same city as those being spied, will tremendously help our secret services. There we go. Speaking of secret service, I think there's something like really quick we can research. And we'll do that. Even Arab Republic is going pretty well, actually. Yeah, I was worried when they first declared this war, but it's working out pretty well for them, all things considered. Like, I'm impressed, honestly. Alright, let's do Jur_prepare_intelligent_infrastructure. The R&D has expressed a keen interest in the new advancement made by our research and has requested the prototype to be streamlined and mass-produced. As a matter of fact, they are suggesting to create an entire infrastructure dedicated to storing, sharing, and transmitting secret information. This service, which they have called Nezram, while still a dream for now, would allow for the rapid transmission and the completely safe storing of all our military secrets, and for even more efficient ways to keep potential enemies or terrorists under control. As the Fuhrer has expressed a keen interest on this project, we shall oversee the preparations for this great endeavor. There we go, then. We'll do it. Oh. Is that the Iraq War? No? Trying to figure what that is then. I don't know if I know. But yeah, The divine mandate of Siberia is not having a good go at it. Sloki kind of cursed, not gonna lie. We'll see some stuff in middle Germany. Military applicability. There we go. I can speak. What are you talking about? While our most recent discoveries are extremely promising, we shouldn't forget that war, in the end, are still fought by soldiers with rifles, tanks, and airplanes. The most modern technologies can't help you if you lose on the field and your capital gets occupied by the enemy. In order to help our men in future wars, we need to slightly shift the focus of the RFM so that it properly starts researching modern weapons and equipment, which will return our army to its former glory. There we go then. Ooh, now this is a good event. This is a very good event coming up. Antonin's 50th birthday was today. These days were no different from any other, only a reminder that his body would continue to break down and become less useful, and that his mind would dull with the passage of time. For that moment, he brought a slightly worn-out coat to work, and passed by the checkpoint, noticing an aura distinctly different from how it usually felt. When he entered the factory, Antonin noticed that all the workers were congregated into a half-circle around a podium in the middle of a room. Fitting into the crowd of half Germans and half Poles, Antonin stared out at the collection of what looked like military officers, one standing in front of the rest. Subconsciously gritting his teeth at the sight of a proper Nazi, Antonin listened as a man gave a stiff salute. And then, "Workers of the Reich! In this case, I am more importantly addressing our Polish slaves." Antonin rolled his eyes, of course. "The FIA has announced that the Litzman Automobile Factory, property of Daimler-Benz, is letting go of all Polish workers who have not been born in Litzmannstadt." Immediately the murmuring in the crowd was heavy, but a slamming of rifles against the ground by nearby soldiers shut them and Antonin up quickly. "Effectively today, those in question will be given 3 days' worth of rations, their documents, including a passport, and 1 month's worth of pay. You will be guided to trains that will head either to German territory or to the Polish government." Feeling a need to say no more, he gave another stiff salute. "Dismissed!" Antonin's mind had entered a flurry. Was what Gottfried said that year ago really going to ring true? Was he going to go home? Why now of all times and so suddenly? There was a tightness in his chest as he approached the man he had now known for 2 years. And for a moment he had looked at Gottfried as if he were just another German. But it passed just as quickly as it appeared. You were right. No, you were right," Antonin began. His fellow worker nodded silently. Now I must board a train and head to the city, all in a day. This all happened so quickly, so suddenly, and Gottfried shook his head. "I don't know much, Antonin. But I do know that I'll miss talking to you." Antonin looked up at the German carefully, swallowing a lump in his throat. Perhaps I'll miss you too." Aw. About to cry. Ooh. The wooden flooring made his feet sore, but it's not like he could complain. The train's car door in front of him was open, exposing the endless green that swirled past him. He didn't know what to think. What was there to think? Nothing at all. Indeed, that was what Antonin was going through. He thought of nothing, but his mind hurt as if he had a migraine. Perhaps he was not allowing his mind to think? Yet deep in that hole of nothingness and despair, a thought was extracted. He could notice his breathing became more hitched, the scratching of his fingertips against the floor, as his hand tightened up. "I have been here before." The sentence wandered in his mind, numb and cold, but it held an ingrained sense of impossibly comprehensive fury. "I have been here before," it repeated. Can I do this real quick? No? Okay. "I've been here before," it repeated, begging to be completed. God damn, what do I... Oh, we're actually... Yeah, we've almost beat a bunch of the other people GDP-wise. Nice. Anyway. The rumbling of this engine and the mixing of the colors in front of me, I recognize it all. It's familiar to me in a way that I can never forget. And how could he? If he did, he would lose that last thing that made him a person. Otherwise, he would simply be a shell, hollow and tumbling in the void, waiting to be consumed by reality's cruel whims. I've been here before. When I never expected to be anywhere else. But I did. Now I've returned. Antonin was not thinking. How could he think? If he did, it would only open up long-lost memories that he would not dare to look at. Here in his train, he was alone. Utterly alone. In this car, there was nobody else but him. He had all reason to think, and all the time. But he would prefer to have his mind remain closed. Banishing the flame that had threatened to engulf him in his mind, he only stared mindlessly into the fields, all of which blended into the same field, green and endless. Yet even in a lack of thought, he hated the chugging of the engine, the bumps on the rail making him stop up his breath, as if the ride had ended. Silence dominated his surroundings, but all he could hear was noise that was almost 30 years overdue. He did not feel the pain in his fingertips, nor the fact that everything in his vision blended into shapeless blobs and whirlwinds of color, and the grinding in his mind that lasted for hours and hours and hours. A train in, a train out, one filled, one empty, and only I remain. There we go, we can get back to it. That's the info, okay. Yeah, neat. So we're doing it, boys. We're bringing Nezram online. We're finally ready. After long and expensive preparations, everything is ready to bring out our first long-distance informatic service online. By transmitting a data file through Nezram between our two distant facilities, we shall not only prove our superior ingenuity, but also inaugurate a new age for the Reich. With Nezram, Germany finally stands proud among the modern nations of Earth once more. No longer shall the German people look in envy as the world leaves us behind. No longer shall our peers laugh at us for being outdated. No longer shall the fatherland wilt under the weight of its own inefficiencies. Praise our great Führer, for he has brought us into the future. Here we go. Let's do it. So we'll do more of these investments. Preußen is Preußen, however you say it, it's going down pretty quickly. I don't want to place that on paper. I might get it wet. Middle Germany is almost out. The Rhineland still has a bit to go, but we'll work on that eventually. I'm gonna keep this open just so I can pause it and then try to work on it, get rid of it as efficiently as possible. Well, he still had a job to do, as he always would, with the main difference being that he was surrounded by men and women of his own blood, all of whom lacked the distinct armband that designated them as Poles. A symbol of oppression removed, but it meant nothing to him. In fact, it only served to further frustrate him. Every day after he would come home from work into a small apartment that can barely house one person, Antonin wonders what really would happen now. Clearly this is not the end goal that the Germans had intended for him, as Gottfried had implied. But what then? What else was in store for him and his people? One day the piercing shriek of the whistle woke him from a daydream and alerted him to work. He was dreaming so often nowadays. Was that age or simply a want to escape reality? Either way, work was monotonous as before, only with somewhat less oversight from the guards, who seemed willing to pounce on any opportunity to harass him before. If life had to carry on like this, perhaps it wouldn't be so awful. He had a place to live and a steady supply of people to talk to. as well as walking around a city freely. Even it was tamed by the Aryan and molded in its image. At least those illusions of which lasted until a fellow worker spoke to him. Surprised to hear a voice, he observed who spoke to him. It was a woman who seemed to be in her 40s. "You," she began, with Antonin listening in only passively. "I can tell something is off with you. Like a pacified animal. You shamble about and wait to be put down. Is that right?" That caught his attention immediately, and he hissed out, "Are you ridiculous? What are you saying?" "What I'm saying is this. I can sense you are empty, my friend. But you've wanted something which has been kept from you for a long time." "And what would that be?" He suddenly struck back, frustration already appearing on his face. "An opportunity," she said, a small smile gracing her lips. "An opportunity?" Antonin repeated, the word echoing in his head. Was that not what he was looking for? In all his years of labor, he never once struck a German in fear that he would miss out on an opportunity. And now, to take back what we've deserved for so long. You know as well as I do, don't you? She asked, as if she was speaking of some long-lost artifact. Say it. That alien word that has been stolen from us for decades. You offer me freedom. Am. Another great fucking great fucking event. There we go. Oh no. Oh, that is fucking cursed. Oh no. I'll hide that real quick. Oh no. Oh no. Please no. That's bad. All lights in Germany were pointed at the University of Göttingen, a secluded room deep in the bowels of the electronic research wing. Dozens of engineers, what is up with me reading today? It's probably because I've read all this 2 times already, and I'm tired of it. Academics and simple students were crowded together around a large machine. By their expression and the excited comments, one would think that they resembled children waiting their turn to enter a bakery shop. And in a way, they indeed were. A large machine stood in the middle of a room, towering over the assembled people. At human level, a small screen and a keyboard were encased in the metal. The screen had nothing on it, but soon would change. In a very similar room in Germania, the central hub of Nezram had been activated, and the network spanning the entirety of the Reich was officially active. In a few moments, a message would arrive from the main device. And the results of this first test would show whether the experiment had been a resounding success or a humiliating failure. The screen buzzed with life, and everyone almost turned into a giraffe trying to look at the screen. Letter after letter. It appeared! "What is your name?" Cheers erupted across the room, and with trembling hands, the university dean answered, "Walter Botha." Another few seconds, then a second message. "What is your quest?" To which the agreed upon answer, "To further science." Finally, the third and last. "What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?" Silence fell in the room. That wasn't the correct question. Was there a problem? A bug? A hacker? Then a student asked for permission to write, and once he had it, he quickly wrote, "An African or a European swallow." 2 minutes of tense wait until the screen finally buzzed again. Scheiße! Cheers and laughs erupted once more. A great day for Germany. Nezram is online. After several years of preparation, repairs, tweaks, and improvements, finally Nezram is online and fully operative. This new and incredibly advanced system, linking together all computers, the most important research facilities and government bureaus, all throughout the Reich, allow for incredibly fast transmission of any sorts of data, from text to images, dramatically improving coordination between the various institutions. While Nezram's main purpose is to help scientific research and increase bureaucratic efficiency, few doubt that the Führer will experiment with its use in the fields of military and espionage. After that, who knows, perhaps the system can be expanded and adapted for civilian use. Still, one thing is certain, with this achievement the Reich has finally entered the future. And that future is now. So let's go. Let's meet with some leadership. Negotiations with the Italian Empire are sure to be extremely difficult, as their political and diplomatic efforts in the last 2 decades have been completely focused on taking their revenge for Landshut by turning the entirety of Europe against us. If we truly are to begin diplomatic talks with such a partner, then we can't afford a single mistake. The Reichskanzlei is abuzz with activity, as the Gang of Four and their closest collaborators are meeting with the Führer to devise a strategy to make this endeavor succeed. We need to be able to resist any criticism or accusation. The Italian diplomats are nothing but shrewd, a quality they showed time and again by taking our allies and Speerite members from us, and they are surely sharpening their daggers as we speak. We'll wait and see. So we got the Arabian Republic instead of the Yemen Arab Republic. Right, they have the Arab League. That little faction. Ooh. Grigori had always carried the hate passed down from his father. There was a spirit in him, unconquered, unbroken, unwilling to bend to the will of Aryan scum. But he had nothing to show for it, only working day by day to toil himself and serve as a slave to the Germans. If that's all he would be and remain to be, then it was almost better to simply cease to exist. The thought to grab the nearest metal object and rush a guard crossed his mind. But neither in the years he was working there did he carry out that glorious fantasy. Perhaps he was a coward for doing so. He would always be a coward. Until one day, a shrill voice stood up tall over him and the rest of the non-Germans present in the factory. He didn't understand much of their language, choosing to almost actively work against learning it. But he had still learned fragments of it. Enough to learn and piece together one crucial fact. The German workers, the first German workers, would come to work here, beginning that shift. Even though the silence afterwards spoke for itself, the guards didn't motion for any increased vigilance. Instead, they seemed to show relief that their fellow brethren would work here. Grigori, however, had other ideas. Only minutes afterwards did the first workers begin trickling in. Once they did, the light in his eyes had shone in a way previously unknown. He could tell what that sinking yet exciting feeling in his gut was. This was the time, and he could get no other time. Perhaps it was a fact that the guards were lax from the German workers. Perhaps the other Russians and Poles and Ukrainers decided to ignore the fact that Grigori seemed to tense up as if he seen the murder. And perhaps the German that was approaching him mistook his feeling as fear rather than fury. What was for certain, however, was the chaos that ensued when Grigori grabbed the nearest metal object, screamed in a voice coarse and unused, rage overfilling every inch of his body as he swung harder than he'd swung before. The sickening crack that echoed through the factory was quickly drowned out by shouts and bootsteps, with the German falling to the ground like a puppet, with its strings cut, as Grigori relentlessly continued. It took no less than 6 men to tear the murderous machine away from the man bleeding profusely on the floor, and only minutes later did silence come over the factory again. When tomorrow arrived, there was one less slave working in the factory. Just an industrial accident, I guess. Here we go. We're doing it, guys. We're abolishing slavery. And there's more research. I don't really care about research at this point. really don't. Honestly. Let's give out an apology. Perhaps the best way to start the negotiation would be an apology. Though the Atlantic Dam wasn't ordered by us, we are still their successors in accordance with international law of continuation, which means that, in the eyes of the Italian government, we are directly responsible for any damage caused by our predecessors' actions. By issuing a public and official statement of apology in which we express our regret for what the Italians suffered, we can show their delegation how sincere we are in mending the past and starting a new course for our new nations. We can only hope it works. Alright, check this. Wunderbar. Okay, Dofar is 1. Oh, so close in Prussia. Relatively close in Middle Germany. Rhineland, kind of getting there. Okay, so I'm guessing we can start investing some of these other guys in their conflicts. So we'll do that. Get our current involvement in the current conflict up, so we get some more benefits eventually. Get him out of Prussia. Almost out of Middle Germany. Fuck, that is so close. I know they were supposed to start up a faction soon, but I forget when. At the same time, in both Germany and Italy, the Grossdeutscher Rundfunk and the Telegiornale RAI gave a simultaneous broadcast on all channels. The Führer of the Großgermanische Reich, Albert Speer, shall now release an official statement destined for the government of the Italian Empire. Came the smooth voice of a German announcer with Italian subtitles, and after a few seconds the camera passed to the Reichskanzlei in the Führer's representation office. There, behind an ornate desk with an eagle-shaped gold inkwell in its center, the inkpots safely tucked under its wing, sat Speer himself. For a moment, a shadow of hesitation passed over his otherwise serious face, only to disappear as soon as his eyes focused on the camera. There he spoke, subtitles following his words. Citizens of the Italian Empire, perhaps you may have forgotten, but we were allies once. Against an enemy 10 times superior, we stood side by side, our bond of brotherhood, tested in fire and blood. From the icy steppes of Russia to the fiery desert storms of Sahara. A moment of pause, again a small hesitation, then his expression became one of contrition. However, my alliance came to an end after the unwise actions of our country. My predecessor, ill-advised by corrupt members of his administration, chief among them, Hermann Göring und Martin Bormann, ordered the construction of what would come to be known as the Atlantic Dam. We all know the results, in the beautiful cities of Venice, Genoa, and Naples bear the scars of our mistakes. As Adolf Hitler's successor, the responsibility of such shameful and irresponsible conduct, which can't simply be excused by his advanced age and progressing illness, falls upon me, and for this, I am sorry. Another small pause, and another longer hesitation. Then he looked directly at the camera, and, in a heavily accented tone, he spoke the crucial words. Mi dispiace. Perdonamente supporte. The camera went dark, and the anchorman's smooth voice resonated once more. That was all. We thank you for your attention and bid you a pleasant evening. All of the Reich asks the Italian people for forgiveness. And some pizza. That'd be nice too. Let's try to save some face. While our apology has been welcomed by the Italian delegation as a good start to the talks, they haven't been appreciated by the conservatives in our government. Not one bit. Now, our supporters criticize Schmidt, the man responsible for our diplomatic overture to the Italian Empire, accusing him of having sold out our national pride in this humiliating charade. If we want to avoid problems at home, we need to find a way to save face at once. While not turning back on our apologies, which would only infuriate the Italians, we'll start a propaganda campaign about how important this will be for our national security and our economy in the long run. That works for me. I'll start that this time. There we go. There we go, antitrust directive, and we can go ahead and dismantle Reich. Beautiful. We got the... Alright. Edmund Geilenberg entered the top office in the Reichswirtschaftsministerium as one enters his home. As head of a large state-owned industrial conglomerate in the Reich, he had more power in his hand than the entire ministry put together. Inside that office, however, was someone who would reverse the roles once and for all. Reichsminister, came Gellenberg's polite, if a bit haughty salute. Wer Wirtschaftsführer, was Ludwig Erhard's equally polite and equally haughty answer. I'm sure you already know the reason for your summons. You have too many contacts within my ministry to feign ignorance. Erhard immediately went to the point. Gellenberg nodded, distaste evident in his face, and that was enough. In light of the new economic policy, Reichswerke is to be dismantled and its constituent companies restored as independent actors within a free market. Gallenberg had known the day would come, and for a moment his face contorted in anger. He was losing his power, his position, everything he had worked for during and after the war. However, he knew his position. He was no abs, but a functionary put there by the government to oversee a state-owned company. I understand. I will obey my orders, was his only answer, anger replaced by defeat. Erhard nodded curtly. Part of him had hoped for a bit more resistance, but Geilenberg was no fool. He was already calculating how to cut his losses, and by giving his acceptance, he had already secured his first point. The minister wasn't keen on doing this, but appearances needed to be saved. Thank you. For your service to the Reich, you will be assigned as chairman to one of your new companies. I'm sure you will keep working hard for the good of the nation. Gallenberg nodded, his face neutral, then the two shook hands. And the former Wehrwirtschaftsführer left Erhard's office. Another conglomerate ended. Sexy bonuses as always. Ooh. Maintaining the flow of information was Wessel's job. No decision should be made without the most complete knowledge of the situation possible, and it was the R&D that kept these channels of information open. Or so he had thought. It seems Reinhardt had fallen into the old spymaster's trap, the whole hoarding of knowledge for his own sake. It was therefore up to Wessel to restart the flow. To the untrained eye, the headquarters of the Reich's foremost intelligence agency was just another office building. All too easy for a loose sheet of paper or cassette to fall into the bag while its owner was preoccupied. A microphone concealed within a lampshade might be noticed in an office, but nobody would ever consider searching for one behind the bowl of a toilet. And conversations became less formal when one has their fly undone. Very true. Gerhardt now enjoyed the fruits of his labor in his office. The unmarked cassette was playing into a pair of headphones. The fact that this tape existed at all was damning enough, but the contents disturbed him greatly. The recording was that of a phone conversation. At one end, Gellen's cracking voice, the other, the unmistakable tone of their Führer, Albert Speer. He listened to its completion, then removed the film from the tape, concealing it with an empty bottle of pills. Gellin was a true rogue agent, at the head of one of the world's largest intelligence agencies. Reinhardt was smart, and revealed much while demanding nothing. Nonetheless, Gerhardt could recognize the hint of extortion. Truly no one was without sin. Gerhardt had known many of the darker secrets of the Reich, but could only hypothesize whether Speer had been party to them. If Gellin revealed any of what he had found, the Reich would collapse in on itself. Speer had buried his past deep, yet Gellin found it nonetheless. A stark warning of what he was facing. If he was to act against Reinhard Gellin, he must act fast, for the safety of the Reich that his mentor had so clearly forgotten. The man's own ego will be his downfall. So we got a lot of slaves in Poland for whatever reason. Guess I'll scroll in a bit more. I guess this war checking hasn't started. Never mind. More investments. Wunderbar. We'll do. We'll do a trade agreement. When the Atlantic disaster befell the Mediterranean countries, the Axis split off after a heated meeting between Hitler and Mussolini. No one really knows the details, but when the two left the room, they were both infuriated, and as soon as the alliance was officially over, the Reich and the Italian Empire immediately embargoed each other. At the beginning, we were clearly the stronger ones, and our colonies provided all the economic support our economy needed. Now, however, things have changed. Pumped by the absolute monopoly over oil trade, and helped by a cunning and pragmatic diplomatic policy, which let them trade with both the OFN and the Japanese Speer, the Italian economy is at risk of surpassing our own, especially after the Civil War. Now the embargo is suffocating us, and we desperately need access to the Italian markets. Perhaps we could mutually lift the embargo and begin on a clean slate. Let's see, they aren't even in the top 5 economies. We've passed the USA. Granted, this is total GDP. But still. And I'm not feeling like reading this one, to be honest. I'll keep it paused for a second so you can look at it. Toast to science and progress. Sorry, I read that one a couple times, and it's not the most important to what's going to be happening. So, God, my voice is getting coarse. There we go. Go ahead and dismantle that, and we did it, boys. We've abolished the cartels. Slavery is no more. Oh, there we go. Now we can go ahead and focus on the rest of this. Okay. Have the Arabian Republic. Iraq collapses into civil war. Who'd have thunk? Who'd have thunk it, ladies and gentlemen, that Iraq would be unstable? Man knows the reason you summoned me, Reich Minister. Ludwig Erhard looked at his interlocutor, so similar to him and yet so different. Hermann Josef Abs was smoking the same brand of cigars, and his eyes mirrored Erhard's, cold, calculating, merciless. This, however, was where the similarities ended. Unlike the president of IG Farben, the Reich Minister actually had ideals, and this made the difference. I called you here to notify you of the imminent dismantlement of IG Farben. It will be broken into its constituent companies, each to become a competitor in a free market economy. There. He had dropped the bomb. He was prepared. Abs would scream at him. The two would scream at each other until he would leave defeated. Therefore, it was difficult to rein in his surprise when he heard his rival's words. I see, Reich Minister. Thank you for what you are doing for the Reich. Erhard's jaw dropped short of falling to the ground, and Abs chuckled. I can see you are surprised, but your fears are unfounded. I know that you are trying to abolish slavery and build a new competitive Germany based off free market and positive competition. I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I'll tell you more. I have tried, several times, to reduce IG Farben's reliance on slaves. But the others in the board of directors always objective, and so I'm glad he took the initiative. Finally, Earhart recovered from shock enough to shake hands with Abs when he stated his need to participate to a board meeting. As soon as he was back on his stuffed chair, Earhart started reflecting upon what he had heard. Abs was lying, that he was sure of, but why? What could bring a man who had no qualms in sending thousands to their deaths for a couple million Reichsmarks to suddenly support the abolition of slavery? Something was wrong, but he couldn't put his head around it yet. But the bastard's plotting something. Well, I don't know if he is. All I know is that we have to cut it here, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you as always for watching. If you like this video, go and leave a like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you want to see more of his content, you should go ahead and hit the subscribe button for more uploads every weekday, as well as every Saturday. If any comments, feedback, concern, go ahead and leave in the comment section below. I read all the comments I get and appreciate any all feedback you might have for me. If you want to send feedback my way, I have a Patreon. If you want to chat or play games, I have a Discord. If you want to just watch me do this sort of stuff live and have a good old time while we're doing it, check out my Twitch, all of which are down links below. So yeah, thank you as always for watching, ladies and gentlemen. My name has been DB333, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.